Now that we're comfortable using the graphical layout editor to make changes to our screen layouts, it's time to write some code. Let's start by taking a look at some of the code that Eclipse already added to our Crystal Ball project. On the left side of the screen in Eclipse, we see the Package Explorer view. The first directory in our project is called src, which stands for source. This is where the source code for our application resides. Expand source, and we see the package name that we typed when we first created our project. This is where all our code will go by default, although we can add other packages here if we choose to organize our code in multiple packages. Expand our package and double-click on the file mainActivity.java. In Java, code is organized into classes, and each file typically contains one class. This is an object-oriented programming concept, and Java is an object-oriented programming language. But we won't dive into those details right now. MainActivity.java holds the MainActivity class that corresponds to the screen layout we just edited. This here is the code that runs behind the scenes of our screen. In Android, an activity like this is used to control how things work on the screen. We'll talk much more about activities later as they are central to Android development. But for right now, we're only concerned with lines 11 and 12 inside the onCreate method. But first, we haven't even talked about methods yet. A method is a section of code that you can call from elsewhere in your code, and the method will perform some action or return some kind of result to you. Here's a real-life example to relate to. Every time you order a pizza, you provide a parameter, i.e. the toppings that you want on the pizza. In return, you get a pizza with those toppings. Here's what this would look like in Java. In this pizza example, the method name is orderPizza. Required parameters for a method in Java are declared between parentheses after the method name. In our example, we have just one parameter, the toppings we want on our pizza, represented here as a string variable. Remember from earlier that string variables are used to hold text data. We're going to get a pizza as a result of this order. So here I put the imaginary data type of pizza as the data type that gets returned by this method. These curly brace characters mark the beginning and end of our method, so the code to make the pizza would go in between them. Finally, this keyword here at the beginning dictates who can call this method. Public means that anyone, i.e. the public, can call it. Okay, back to our app. In this case, the name of the method we're looking at is onCreate, and it gets called when the activity is first created. Since this main activity is the only activity in our app, that means that this onCreate method will be called when our app is first started. The onCreate method is a type of method that performs an action but does not return any kind of result. That is indicated by the void keyword here. If a result were to be returned, then the data type of the result would be here instead, like when we used pizza data type for our orderPizza method example. Whereas our orderPizza example had one parameter, a string variable named toppings, this method has a single parameter called savedInstanceState, whose data type is bundle. Again, the body of the method is surrounded by curly braces. So here we have two lines of code that make up this method. The important one for now is line 12. This shows how to call a method in code. The call is to a method named setContentView. Notice when I hover over the words setContentView that a yellow box with a lot of text pops up. This is called IntelliSense. Eclipse intelligently senses where your mouse cursor is and checks to see if it has any helpful information to show you about what your cursor is on. We'll use IntelliSense a lot as it has a ton of helpful functionality. Inside the parentheses is the parameter of the method, and it's telling this activity to use the activity main layout as its content view. This is where the activity main.xml layout gets attached to this activity. Now that it's hooked up, we can work with those views that we added to the layout. Remember those IDs we looked for in our text view and button? Those are what we need to manipulate those views in this code. We need to change the text in our label for the answers, and we need to tell the button what to do when we tap on it. We covered a lot about classes and objects. Remember that a class is like a blueprint for an object, and in code we can interact with objects which have properties about them and abilities or methods they can perform. Next up, we'll add some code to the main activity class and make our app do something.